I can predict the future of many. Imagine you've watched this series and realize that magnesium could be the missing piece to your child's health in general and sleep in particular. So you buy the right kind of magnesium, give the right dose, and at the right time. Slowly it seems to be working, and then shazam, life gets busy. Change is happening. A few doses of magnesium get missed. Then the bottle runs out. You're in the store. You can't remember what kind it was. You buy something, maybe the right one, maybe not. And you realize after making real progress, you are back where you started. Does that feel familiar? Here's what that experience is actually showing you. For this topic, two different things are needed to improve sleep, and only one of them comes from a bottle. I'm Diane Luzny, and I work with moms of kids on the autism spectrum, age 4 to 12, who also have sleep issues. This is the last video in this series on magnesium and autistic sleep. We've covered why so many kids on the spectrum are likely to be running low in magnesium, what it does to the body, what forms work and don't work, what the research shows, and the practical side, timing, dosing, medications. This video is about the piece that sits underneath all of that, the piece that determines whether the improvements you see become consistent or whether they stay hit and miss. Point 1, what magnesium can and cannot do. Let's be clear about what magnesium actually changes. When it works, it reduces the nervous system's baseline activation in the evening. It gives the body better access to its own calming chemistry. So when the bedtime routine begins, your child is slightly less wired than they would have been. They are more likely to settle. For some children, eventually, that makes a noticeable difference in how long it takes for them to fall asleep, how the evening goes. But here's what it doesn't change. It doesn't teach the nervous system when it's safe to let go, when there isn't danger. It doesn't build the association between a consistent sequencing of events, an evening and a bedtime routine, and the experience of settling. It doesn't tell the body what to do when it wakes up at 2 in the morning and can't find its way back down. Think of it like this. Imagine you're trying to help someone fall asleep in a room where the lighting keeps changing unpredictably. You could give them something to reduce their baseline anxiety, and that would help. They'd feel calmer within themselves. But if the room light keeps changing and the nervous system is always getting re-alerted, it stays partially alert, just in case. Magnesium increases the body's ability to calm. A consistent, predictable environment is what builds the trust that there isn't danger. The nervous system needs both. And this series up till now has only been addressing the magnesium. Point 2, how the nervous system actually learns to sleep. The nervous system learns through repetition in a consistent context, not perfection, repetition, a predictable routine. When the same sequence of events happens in the same order at roughly the same time with roughly the same sensory environment, the nervous system begins to recognize the pattern. And eventually, that pattern becomes the signal, the bath, the dim light, the particular quiet of the house. These stop being events and become safety for your child. Permission to relax. It's okay. It's now safe. That process takes more time than most of us like to expect, and less time than we realize to be broken. The popular idea is that a habit forms in 21 days is a convenient number. Not too long, not too short, easy to focus on. But how long it actually takes depends on a lot of things. How entrenched the old pattern is, how complicated the change is, how quickly the reward is felt, what the environment is doing, how meaningful the change feels day to day, and many others. For an autistic child whose nervous system doesn't generalize easily, who finds transitions hard, and who is more sensitive to changes in the sensory environment, building something new tends toward the longer end, and losing it can happen faster than it was built. So, let's say your child's nervous system was just beginning to recognize the pattern. Then, 2 hard, unplanned nights in the 3rd week happen. But it's not a failure. It's a normal variation in a system that's still learning. What it needs is for the environment to stay consistent long enough that the learning consolidates. It's hard to do if every bedtime feels different. And this is where knowing your child's state going into bedtime matters enormously. A child arriving at bedtime wired and hyper-aroused needs a completely different approach than a child arriving shut down and withdrawn. A child who is post-meltdown needs space before connection. A child who is clingy needs connection before space. Getting this wrong doesn't just miss the mark, it can re-alert the nervous system that was almost ready to settle. I have a free guide that walks through the 5 pre-bedtime states: clingy, wired, withdrawn, post-meltdown, calm. What each of those states is trying to communicate and how to respond to it. It's in the description below. It's short, it's specific, and it's useful tonight. Point 3, making the most of a supplement using structure. So we're looking at a 2-prong approach. First, give the body what it needs to be able to settle. Magnesium, if your child is deficient, is part of that. The right form or type, the right dose, the right timing. We've covered all of that. The second, give the nervous system a predictable, calming environment that it can learn to trust. Something that happens consistently enough for long enough that the pattern becomes the signal. The challenge, and I hear this frequently, is that staying consistent feels nearly impossible. Because how your child behaves changes from day to day. What happens during the day changes. What's going on in your life changes. You're not working from a simple, stable system. You're trying to build something that feels like a roller coaster or several roller coasters. And you're doing it knowing that many of the kids on the spectrum take longer than average to establish something new, and less time than you'd like to lose it. This is where a framework, support, and accountability make a difference between something that almost worked and something that actually holds. The 21-day sleep habit was built for exactly this. Not a full-on rigid routine that collapses the first time your child is sick, or something changes, or you've had a hard week. In this program, we focus on small and doable. We focus on building a skill that becomes a repeatable success. We want you to laser focus on one bedtime habit, perhaps a leverage habit, go through our process, tweaking and improving until you don't have to think about it anymore. It is part of your life. Each daily video is short, under 5 minutes. The actions are concrete. The focus is on one important sleep habit at a time, held consistently for 3 weeks until it's well enough established for you to build on. This program isn't to add more to your plate. It's to prioritize and simplify, to focus, to give the nervous system the repetition it needs inside of a structure you can actually maintain. Magnesium may be part of what you use, but it sits inside something bigger, a framework that teaches your child's nervous system what settling can feel like and how you can make it effortless. And once you've done the program once, the skills carry forward into every area you want to work on. If that sounds like something you're missing, or what you can take up to the next level, the link is in the description below. So far, you've watched 5 videos about a mineral, which means you're the kind of parent who is still looking, still trying to understand what's actually happening for and inside your child, rather than just pushing through and hoping the nights get easier on their own. The nights can get easier, not only because you find the right supplement or the right tip or the right version of a routine you've already tried a dozen times, but because your child's nervous system is interactive. It has patterns, it has signals, it has things it needs that are specific to it. And when you know what those are and you respond to them consistently enough, the nervous system starts to do the work on its own. That's what we're building toward. Sign up for the 21-day sleep habit in the description below. I'd love to see you there.